everybody, and welcome back to the Consummate Athlete Podcast. I'm Molly Herford, a very tired author of several books on cycling, writer of all kinds of different outdoor fitness adventure-y type stuff, and currently incredibly sore.
And I'm Peter Glassford. I'm a registered kinesiologist and endurance coach, and I guess...
Currently very hungry.
I'm very hungry, as I actually won a bicycle race yesterday, which was great. I am now the reigning provincial world champion of Ontario.
Do you get a jersey for that?
I do have one, yeah, and I don't know. It's always the what do you do with them?
Wear it.
But nice to have. Nice to have, right? Like, yeah, it's always I always come back to like plaques and medals and stuff, and you end up, what do you do with them, right? You know.
Well, we have a giant mason jar full of medals.
We do. Maybe we should even post a picture of that because maybe people like that. But we cut off all the ribbons, which is hard to do. But there was a bunch from my many years. It's not that I won that many. It's a participation medals mostly.
I'd like to hold on and say some of those medals are mine too.
Did you put some of yours in?
Yes, I did.
Oh, that's not as impressive. But it's a heavy mason jar. So this is like a big. This is like a liter. What's that in gallons?
I think it's like a gallon. I don't think it's a liter.
I think that's a gallon.
A liter's pretty small.
I guess.
Did you know a liter is only 33 ounces? I figured this
out. That
out.
means nothing.
I mean, it
absolutely
should.
Nothing to me.
A water bottle, like a normal bike one, would be like 16 ounces.
Yeah, I know those.
So liter is like 2 water bottles. And I didn't really realize that until...
You know what we do? We do 500 and 500. That equals 1,000 or 1 liter.
Okay. Anyway, I didn't realize that until I was going to
This got vicious. This is like...
Yeah.
Yeah. Country wars here. Metric system.
Anyway, I didn't realize this until I was trying to get my Tailwind into my Camelback pack for the race I did on Saturday.
Tailwind is a sugar powder that you're using. Yeah.
I mean, it's really...
You're not just trying to like capture a tailwind.
Yeah, I was running around like a kite kind of situation.
Okay, so you're using Tailwind. Yeah. Hopefully we can get a payment for that.
Yeah. I feel like you're being really weird today.
I'm a little hyper, I'll be honest.
Anyway, yeah, I was measuring it and I was like, oh, I'm going to need to put like 10 scoops in here at least. And bear in mind, 1 scoop is 100 calories. So like that would have been a lot. Luckily, I realized, I was like, I should see how much a liter is in ounces so I do this right. And I looked and I was like, oh, I'm really only supposed to put 4 scoops in here. Should not put 10.
Yeah, I don't remember how Tailwind works. Some of those you can mix pretty dense if you want. Right?
I mean, you could, but then I would be like trying to like pull basically a gel through.
Yeah, you would have to have water, right? So the idea would be that you'd have like a densely mixed bottle, and then you would also have like a hydration pack or something.
Yes, but I was mixing a hydration pack. I was not mixing.
Yeah,
a
I mean that's not going to go through that tube very easily.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so you did well at this 50K. You survived.
Yeah.
That was checkpoint number 1.
Yeah. So anyone that's heard me talking all summer about this 50K mountain run. It was done by Under Armour Mountain Running. It's their series. They have 3 different races. This one was in Killington, Vermont. It's up and down their ski hill there, so it's about 3,000 meters of climbing. That's 9,000 feet for the Americans.
Convenient numbers. Yeah.
And yeah, it went super well. I had no idea. I've never done an ultra distance before, and I mean, granted, 50K is only 30 miles, but with the 3,000 meters of climbing, it turns out that's actually really hard. So yeah, headed in, didn't really have any expectations for myself, wasn't totally positive how it was going to go, but found myself sitting in 4th for the first half of it, and then eventually passed the 3rd place woman and moved into 3rd and finished 3rd female, but then also I'm almost more excited about finishing 10th overall. And there were, I think, 130 starters. So, pretty psyched on that.
And the community was good? You said the atmosphere was really supportive?
I loved it. Oh my gosh. The people were awesome in the first bit because ultras are kind of about like settling into like a pretty steady pace. I was with 3 of the women and we were just chatting and like just having a really good time. I mean, chatting like where you're getting a sentence out and breathing hard, but still, you know, having friendly conversations. And when I passed Amy, who actually had won the race last year. When I passed her and moved into 3rd, she was just like, go, 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 and like really psyched. So, yeah, it was really good. And, you know, I'd catch up with some dudes. I was, I think, 12th for a while and then started passing guys and moved into 10th. But the guys were all super supportive and nice. And so many people at the finish line were really nice. And I like ended up in tears at the finish, which is really silly. And I've never cried after a race, but it was a very like emotional, just positive experience for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole running community, right? Like, I think you can find that in lots of different sports, but running is fairly approachable, but there's also so many different types of it, right?
Yeah.
You know, so maybe people have tried road running, but found it, hard on joints or, a little too intense maybe. I mean, sometimes some of those 10Ks probably get a little intense, but some of the trail running is a little more, sort of like mountain biking tends to get the reputation that it's a little more laid back and beards and
yeah, exactly,
all this stuff.
I'd say a lot of the people that did the 25K were definitely more in that like, serious-ish, but like still pretty casual. Like they were taking their time on the day and just kind of enjoying the trek instead of trying to like get under 2.5 hours or whatever.
So the 25K was serious or wasn't?
Wasn't.
Oh,
like,
okay.
Much
I was
more
like, that
of
seems
that.
odd because it wasn't the premier race.
No, it was much more of that like laid back atmosphere. Just because our course is paralleled for chunks of time, so you'd be passing people doing the 25K, and they were all super supportive, but just like having a great time chatting with each other. And
so if people want to, is this a series that Under Armour's doing?
Yeah, they have 3. One was in Colorado, then there was this one, and then in September there's one, I think, in Bend, Oregon.
Okay. And I mean, there's lots of races like this.
Yeah.
We always joke that if we just stayed in our own town here in Collingwood, we could race pretty much something every weekend, which next year might be more of our consummate athlete approach, was to race a lot more stuff. And I mean, it's convenient because we have Pan Am Cyclocross Championships, National Cyclocross Championships, and then also National Mountain Bike. So, I mean, I can really just keep racing bicycles and race within, I mean,
and call it
Peterborough's probably 2 hours, but even within 1 hour, we have a lot of really high-end cycling. But we also have a couple, we'll call them mountain runs, but off-road trail runs.
Yeah.
The mountain, I think we still have some sort of road run here in town.
Oh,
we
sure.
have 2 obstacle course races. I don't know what else we have. There's probably got to be some rock climbing. Leslie's never mentioned any competition, but
I feel like we're selling Collingwood really hard right now.
yeah, I guess that wasn't really my point, but what was my point?
I don't know.
Oh, I think more so that there's running events everywhere, and there's all different types, and people should give it a try, I think.
Speaking of running events and I guess being nervous about them, today's guest I'm super stoked on. So we had Kara Goucher on to talk about her new book, Strong, and it was perfect timing. I interviewed her, I think, on Thursday, so right before my race, and in it you get to hear a bit of my pre-race nerves, and Kara Goucher telling me that I'm going to do fine. So I feel like I was channeling that all during the race. I'm like, I have to do okay because Kara Goucher told me I could do okay. So for those of you who don't know, Kara Goucher is one of the most, I'd say, famous American women running marathon right now.
I would say probably one of the most famous marathoners, period.
That's true, yeah.
Because if you try and think, like, there's Ryan Hall maybe, but I think if people start thinking about runners, they know.
Yeah, there aren't
I would
that
think
many.
She'd probably be in the top of what people can name as like a household name.
Definitely. She's super rad. She's been to the Olympics twice. She narrowly missed out on going to Rio in 2016, but she went in 2008 and 2012. Placed in the top 10. She's had an amazing running career. She was with Nike for a long time. Now she's with Oiselle and a bunch of other like independent sponsors. I actually figured out how to pronounce that.
They make shoes, or what do they make?
No, they do clothing.
Oh, okay.
Really awesome clothing, by the way, if anyone's listening. I love all of their stuff, and Kara actually has a new collection out with them that she helped design. That's beautiful, and we talk about that a bit too. But mainly we're talking about sort of, I'm going to call it more of an intro to sports psychology and confidence. I really like her new book because it's a very practical, here are like 6 or 7 ways that you can improve your confidence and mental game, for any sport. Running is sort of what she's writing about, but you could apply it to pretty much anything. And I'm definitely recommending it to a lot of, especially the younger athletes that I work with, as sort of a starting point for sports psychology. Because some of the books that are out right now are great, but they get really into the weeds in it. Like, half of it is all about like the science. Kara references articles, references studies, but doesn't belabor them. It's very practical. Here's what you can do right now.
And is there some like case studies of what she's gone through?
Tons of her own experience.
Because that's, I think, for me at least, I'm very like, that's what in school I always, if there wasn't case studies, in the back of the book, I just zoned out. But if I could see what someone had done or been through, right? Like sometimes that's And if I think back to any of the sports psych books that, we've referenced a few here, How Bad Do You Want It? Brain Training for Runners with Matt Fitzgerald.
Brave Athlete.
What did I say first? Wasn't that what I said?
No, you said How Bad Do You Want It?
Oh, I just said all the Matt Fitzgeralds. We love Matt Fitzgerald. All those books, like, my favorite parts are the actual case studies, right? And
yeah, definitely.
And I think that's what you can then draw from, right? Whether it's, it's not as bad as this case, or this is just like that case, right? I think it sort of gives you comfort in your existential dilemma of, being an athlete.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's great. It's got a bit of a workbook component too, so it actually does have spots in it where you can do your journaling, or it teaches you, I guess, how to journal. She's very big on the confidence journal, which I really like. I've been heavily into the idea of reframing negatives lately.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk a bunch about that, and, the confidence journal, we talk more about it in the episode, but it's one of those things where, even if you have a bad workout, you can still write about, like, one good point from it, or, like, what you got out of it. So finding kind of things about even a crappy day or a seemingly crappy day.
Well, and you had, the run-in, we had the quest, so you were running around basically as a camp management.
Coach, counselor.
So you weren't doing whatever someone would do, and this running around being a camp counselor, sort of being on your feet might have been great, sort of maintaining that, but you had to sort of reframe that you weren't running and being super focused, in those weeks, 2 weeks probably ahead.
Yeah.
So did you reframe that?
Yeah, and we actually even talked about this at the quest, but I talked about how I tried to think of it as, I'm just going to be super recovered and, like, ready for this and ready to get out and run, especially run in some relative silence compared to living with 18.
Yeah. And that's, I always say like that when people ask me how it was. That's what I keep saying. It's like, it was just got super loud at the end, but it was good because they were, like, all super excited, which is great.
This is the girls, not during races.
No, but I could see in the race, it's like now you'll get this opportunity to just do something, just for yourself, and, like, to get out there, and you have this adventure, right? You left your phone at home, I assume.
I did.
We talked about this beforehand.
I did, and let me tell you, it was really hard because there were moments where I was like, I have something hilarious to tweet right now, and I couldn't do it. So
it's pretty freeing, though.
I left a lot of good content got left out there.
It's pretty good leaving your phone places.
Yeah.
Assuming you don't leave it somewhere you don't remember.
Yeah.
What?
Anyway, let's dive into this episode with Kara Goucher. Before we get in, just a quick reminder: our podcast is sponsored by the Wide Angle Podium Network. Donating to them really helps us out. If you want to find out more about it, it's wideanglepodium.com/donate. So, Kara Goucher, what bio are you running with right now?
I usually just say a mom, a 2-time Olympian, a runner.
And now an author.
Yes, and an author, I guess. We can add that too.
Yeah, which is, pretty exciting, and I kind of want to talk about that first. So what prompted you to want to put out a book now?
Yeah, I think I have been really open with my struggles with, like, my mental battles and my issues with self-confidence, and I've talked about it a lot when I speak with other women and girls. And at my retreat a couple of years ago, one of the attendees is a publisher, and so it was actually her idea. She reached out to me in the very beginning of 2017 and said, hey, would you ever want to do a book about, like, some of these techniques in your confidence journal and kind of share it with the world? And I was like, let's do it. So really, I have to thank Brenda Dominguez, because she was the one that really, gave me the opportunity to write the book.
Oh, that's awesome. So kind of like I was talking about, you got the idea sort of on doing your retreats. How long have you been doing the retreats, by the way?
My first one was in 2014. So this year will be the 5th year.
Okay. And so what do the retreats look like? I was kind of stalking it on your website. Like, oh man, I'm sad I'm busy that weekend now.
Yeah. It's not like a normal training camp. So you're not going to learn any training techniques, but it's more of a wellness retreat. So we have a sports doc who talks to us about injury prevention. We learn self-defense. My trainer comes and teaches us, like, a workout. We do go to the track and do a really fun workout together. But then we talk a lot about mental struggles and being enough in your life and being present in your life. We talk a little bit about nutrition. We do Pilates. So it's kind of just like this weekend of kind of reflection on your life, where you're at, and what you want to do moving forward to make yourself more fulfilled and happier.
Oh, that's awesome. So
yeah, so like running is the thing that binds us all together. So we have women of all ages, all body types, all, maybe we do have a few elite runners that come, but a lot of people are just weekend warriors. And so running is what kind of brings us all together. And my idea behind it was, runners are like in their own little tribe, in their own world, in their own community. Mm-hmm. And you can get along with someone that you never would meet if it wasn't for through running. And running has brought all these incredible people into my life that I never would have had if it wasn't for running. And so that was kind of the idea behind it. Like, could I bring a group of really different women together who have this one thing in common, and could we build each other up? And so that's kind of how it all started.
I love that. So in the years since you've been doing it, I mean, have you noticed that women are coming to this and just kind of lacking that confidence?
Yeah, definitely. I think we do, on the last day of the retreat, we all have to stand and say an intention for ourselves that we're going to do. But before we say the intention, we have to say something positive about ourselves. And you would be shocked at the amount of women that have a hard time coming up with something good about themselves. Or it's like, I'm a good mom, or my friends say I'm good at this. But to really just say like I usually say, like, I'm good at bringing people together. It's really hard for people to come up with something positive. And I think that really struck a chord with me, especially the first year, because I was so caught off guard how emotional people were getting with finding something that they loved about themselves. Mm-hmm. And so I think, the book's strong, and the confidence journaling techniques and all that stuff. I wrote it about running, but it really is applicable to anything in your life.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. Like I was telling you, I was just at a camp with 18 young female athletes, and we actually did the exact same thing the first night. It was, go around and say something you like about yourself. And I think most of them got so caught up in trying to think of something. I think almost all of them were just like, what I like about myself is that I came to this camp, which is a great answer, but it was kind of sad to see these young women. That was like the only thing that they could possibly think of that they liked about themselves in that moment. Or like they just didn't want to like bring it to they didn't want to say something for fear of like sounding like cocky or something. It was crazy. We're like, no, you have to be confident in your abilities. And by the end,
I think that's really true. I think people, especially women and girls, were afraid to say like, I'm good at this, because we don't want to like look like think we're better than everyone else. Or on the flip side, we're so busy taking care of everybody else and people pleasing that we forget that we have our own strength.
Exactly. Yes. So back to the idea of this confidence journal. So I love that the book is sort of a combination of like a workbook that you can write in, and then, also a lot of, really practical suggestions within the writing. So I want you to talk about how you came to start the confidence journal instead of any, other kind of normal training journal, or even just, standard journal. How did that come about?
Yes. I've kept a training log since 1994. So I have, so many years of training log, and that's just a part of like my ritual for getting ready for bed. And I write down what I did activity-wise for the day. It's gotten more detailed as I've gotten older. I put down my pace and my heart rate and things like that. But so I've always been really good at like writing down what I did for the day. So like the act of sitting down and writing was something that's been in my, like, it's a habit of mine. But when I was training for the Olympic trials in 2016, I started to just have like normal doubts, like always, like maybe I'm too old to be doing this. Maybe I should be moving on. Like I haven't raced well in a couple of years. And so my sports psychologist at the time, it was his suggestion. And he was the one that said, I'd love to have you be writing this stuff down every day, have a confidence journal that pairs with your training journal. So at the same time that you write in your training journal, which you do religiously every night, write in your confidence journal something positive about yourself in the day. And whether it's like, I crushed this workout, and when I drove home, I felt really excited about what's ahead. Or if I kind of struggled today, but I still kept the reins on and stayed focused, whatever it might be, finding something positive about the day, even on the bad days. So I started doing it in 2015, and that's how it all started. And it's a technique that I dedicated myself to do it for a month, and then it just became natural. And it's kind of nice to end the night, end a day, every day with something positive about yourself. And it's not always easy. Like some days workouts are going horrible. My son hates me. I'm not getting anything done, and I'm still did my run and dinner was on the table, I did that still. So it's not always great and happy, but the thing about it is then you can flip through it when you're having a bad day, or you're having doubts about a workout coming up, or you're having doubts about a race coming up, or you're just really having doubts about yourself. You can flip through it and say, you know what, I'm doing a lot of really great things in my life, and I deserve to be here at the start line. I know I can hit this workout tomorrow, or just a pat on the back and a hug of you're doing all you can and you're doing a good job.
Yeah, for sure. And I love some of the examples that you have in the book where it isn't necessarily the greatest thing. It would have been really easy for you to go negative in the training journal and be like, oh, just felt really bad this run. And you had such a good way of reframing stuff to accent the positive elements of it. And that was really cool to me, because it's not all about as you said, doing everything perfectly and being able to brag about that, or being excited about that. It's also about looking at, okay, this didn't go well, but
right. And you're never going to have a perfect training cycle. That's just unrealistic. Those things, it's just unrealistic, right? Nobody has the perfect situation. And so if you can kind of center yourself back on what you did right, that's what really matters, because that's all that you can do. You can't control the days that went bad. You can't control what anyone else has done. All you can really do is say, hey, I showed up on all these days and I got this done. Some days it was awesome and some days it was a struggle, but I still got through it. And reflect on your own progress and your own, I always think to myself, I deserve to be here. That's something I say to myself a lot. And when I flip through, I can say, I deserve to be here. I put in the work to be here.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny. I read this pretty much the perfect timing for it, because I've been at this camp working as a coach all week, and I have a 50K trail run coming up on Saturday. So I haven't really been able to taper as one should for that. And I was like, okay, how can we reframe this? I'm like, okay, I'm going to come into it really fresh and super recovered. And so relieved to be quiet for a few hours.
Yeah. And maybe your cup is full because you've been helping out these younger girls. And I'm sure even though it's tiring, you got a lot out of that.
Exactly.
I think reframing is so important I say this with such confidence now, but it's taken me years to get here. And I still have my days that I don't do well. That's what the book is about, because there's a lot of different things you can do to try to conquer that negative self-chatter. But reframing situations has been so important for me to always kind of turn it and focus on the positive. There's no need to worry about it. You can't change the fact that you were just working at camp. Mm-hmm. You can't. It doesn't matter how much you think about wow, I've been on my feet, I've been tired. You can't. It happened, right?
Exactly.
So now it's okay, reframe it. What good is going to come out of that? And you're going to just kill it on Saturday.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen. I'm just going to be at the start line. Kara Goucher told me I was going to kill it, so this is going to be fine. So I loved in the book when you talked about picking a word or a mantra. I'd love it if you could talk a little bit about that for our listeners. Why does that matter? How does somebody pick the right thing? How do you know when it resonates?
So you're only going to know when it resonates when you say it out loud in training and you're like, oh yeah. So I would usually pick a different mantra and or a power word for each sort of training block I was in. So the first time I ran the marathon, I picked the word confidence. And because I was so afraid, I didn't know if I could run that far. And I would just whisper to myself, confidence, you are confident. And I would do that during all of my training. And then on those days where I was struggling, I could say that word and it would conjure up images of myself, conquering the workouts I had conquered. And same with at the race. For the 2016 Olympic trials, I focused a lot on, I deserve to be here. And, for me, when I say that phrase, I think of all the lonely runs I did, all the miles I put in, all the times I showed up and it was just me and my coaches and there was like snow on the ground and I was still out there. And I think power words and mantras, you have to use them in your training. When the training gets hard, you have to be able to recite these things. And that way, when you go to race, when you say that, it will like take you back to all these times where you use that word to get through tough stuff and you know you're ready to be there. So you really have to do it in practice and in training. But, you know, for 2008, when I was trying to make my first Olympic team, my word was fighter. I'm a fighter. I will fight. And so it's just kind of like you have to kind of play around with it because what works for someone else might not work for you. But there's going to be some little phrase or some word that you're going to be like, wow, that's actually exactly how I feel right now in my life. And then grab onto it. That's your word.
Yeah, I love that. And now that we're talking about races, I have to ask, like, any tips for pre-race jitters? Because I feel like that's, I mean, Olympic trials, actual Olympics, you've got to have dealt with this in the past.
Yeah, I mean, this is when I think if you've had a confidence journal, that's when it's huge because you can flip through that and it's very calming. If you haven't been doing a confidence journal, I think it's really so important to always focus on what you've done to be ready. You never really go to a start line saying, well, I've trained to run, 3 hours for the marathon, but I'm super nervous because I think I should be going 2:30, right? You're going there because you trained to run a certain pace. And that's always really calmed me when I get nervous. I say to myself, I'm not asking myself to do anything I haven't proven to myself that I am capable of doing. So if I'm trying to run 2:30, I have done the work that shows that I'm ready to run 2:30. I'm not sitting there saying, somehow by a miracle, I'm going to run 2:15 tomorrow. And that has always really calmed me down because you can only do what you've prepared to do. And when I reframe it as like, I'm just doing something I've proven to myself that I can do, it becomes less daunting.
Yeah, absolutely. So then I have to ask, what's like the hardest race experience that you can remember?
I would say 2014 New York City Marathon, where I was trained to run 2:30 and I tried to run 2:24. And I did everything wrong that I was just talking about. I got in the race and I was like, you know what? I feel fine. We were clipping off some 540s and sub 540s. And I was only trained to run 545s. And I was like, I'm fine. I actually feel great. And, who knows? I could win this. And then, no, I wasn't ready to do that. And we hit the 18-mile mark and it just became a sufferfest. And it was so painful. And I mean, it was just awful. It was just terrible. Struggle for survival. And it was such a rookie mistake. I mean, every time anyone asks me about marathoning, I say, never go out too hard. Always do what you're ready to do. If you really feel great at 20 miles, then you can pick it up. Never do anything before that. And I just totally, everything I knew and everything I experienced, I threw it out the window and like went on some hope. And it totally backfired.
So after that race, and I like, this is kind of about this, but then also in general. So race doesn't go your way, whether it's, because you paced wrong or like your shoelace broke or, it started pouring rain and you weren't ready for that. Any reason your race doesn't go well. How do you get past that and not let that impact the rest of your season or year?
I think it's, if it's a really big race and a really big goal that you had that you don't achieve, I think it's important to kind of like grieve that a little bit. Give yourself a couple days to be upset because if you really wanted something really badly and it's something you've been pointing towards and you put a lot of work into and you don't get it, it's like a loss, like you put so much into it and you don't get it. And if you just go, oh, that's okay, then I feel like you have to actually like admit that it didn't happen the way you wanted and you're sad about it and it's okay to cry and it's okay to kind of be down in the dumps for a couple days. But then I think if you actually do that and you actually like let out your frustration about it, then it's easier to a couple days later say, okay, what makes me excited now? And then think ahead to a new goal. I think when we say, it's okay, it's no big deal, then it's hard to move on, really. It kind of lingers, and it kind of starts to creep in and make doubt. You're like, well, I mean, it didn't happen the way I thought. I think you need to like really acknowledge it and kind of grieve the loss of that. And then you can set your sights on something new.
Yeah, absolutely. So flip side of that, what happens when a race goes really well? Because I feel like there's almost equally, like, you almost, in a weird way, like, grieve it being over and, like, oh my God, what's next? Like,
yeah. I mean, that's how I felt the first time I ran my first marathon. Even before we ran it, I had enjoyed training for it so much. And in the week leading up when I was tapering, I was kind of sad already. I was just like, this has been such a happy time of my life, and I can't believe it's almost over. And I think, again, it's just like you need to like celebrate the fact that you did do all that work, and you need to acknowledge that you did all that work, and you can't just dive right into something else again, whether it goes good or bad. You need to take the time to recover, to acknowledge what you put your body through and your emotions through, you know, and before you can like really move on and think about something else. And I'm always kind of in a lull after a big event, whether it goes good or bad, because you put so much physically, but so much emotionally and mentally into this stuff, and then it's just done. You know, it's like so much prep, months and months of prep, and then it's just like, good job, done. And you're like, wait, what? So I'm always like I always try to like celebrate and spend time with family and stuff, and if it doesn't go my way, like be sad about it a little bit, but even when it goes well, I do have like a little bit of like sadness, and then I think, well, that's actually good, because that means I love what I'm doing and I'm enjoying the journey. So now what's next? Yes,
definitely. So one other thing I loved in the book is you mentioned that just the phrase used is hang out in the light. I love that. So, you know, be surrounded by positivity and people who are on your team. Can you talk about that a bit? Like, did you have a before moment where you weren't doing that? Or have you always just had like amazing support around you?
I haven't always. And the times when I've had it, even when races don't go my way, I'm still enjoying the journey, versus when I'm not in the most supportive environment, even if I have a great day, I'm still not really enjoying that journey. So I think it's important to kind of weed out the people or the things around you that cause you angst and don't totally support what you're doing and don't make you happy on your way there, because you're putting so much into it that if you're not, and I mean, I'm not saying like I go for an 18-mile run and I'm like, this is the best ever, I'm so happy every step, you know, like I'm suffering, but there's beauty and joy in that process of like getting more out of myself every week and really putting myself on the line and really testing myself. And if the people around you aren't like on board and helping that journey or supporting that journey, then it becomes more of like a chore and you start to lose the love. So I've really tried to just let people in, whether it's therapists, coaches, teammates, running buddies that are like, I mean, we all have our days where we just want to go for a run and complain, you know? That's life. But in general, I just want to be around people that believe and are positive and are excited about life and look at life in a positive way. And where when you do your best, that is enough. It doesn't necessarily matter where you finish, as long as you did your best, they are happy for you, and that is enough. And I think it's really important to just surround yourself with those kinds of people and to kind of, you don't have to like cut all these other people out of your life, but don't really let them have any room in your training and in your headspace, because you're asking a lot of yourself. You don't need any negativity along the way that's added in from an outside source.
Yeah, definitely. I'm like, I give myself enough negativity to deal with. I don't really need someone else doing it for me. Okay, so with everything you have going on now, with the book, with retreats, and I mean, honestly, just how many years have you been a professional runner at this point?
Oh, this is my 17th year, so it's been a long time.
Yeah, okay, 17 years as a pro. How has your training changed from like the first couple years to now? Which I realize is like a question that could take us, 3 hours to discuss. But are there any major changes?
Yeah, there have been major changes. I would say that when I was sort of at the height of my track career, and my life is still built around my running. I mean, I get my son off to school and then I go and train. But back in the day, everything was built around running. I mean, there was zero other things in my life but running. And I would run and I would nap and I would get treatment and I would go for another run. And I mean, I had a watch with 2 alarms. One went off at 8:30 and one went off at 5. And I got up at 8:30 and had breakfast and trained at 10, did all these other things, went back to bed, got up at 5, trained again. And I just lived this kind of monk lifestyle and I loved it. I felt like I was getting so much out of myself. But then, you get a little bit older and then I had a child and like, that's not my life anymore. Especially not now where I have like kind of expanded into other things in my life that I really enjoy and like. So my day is still built around training, but I don't, it's not all anymore, like I work on my computer for a little bit and I go meet people and I have other things that I fill my cup with now, whereas before it was just everything to make me the best runner I could possibly be. Whereas now when I'm training, I'm doing everything I can to be the best runner I can be. But the majority of my day is actually about just being the best person I can be and nurturing the things that I care about.
Yeah, and I feel like that probably actually also makes you mentally stronger as a result. You have a family now and, you're inspiring all of these other women. So I feel like to some extent, like that cup is almost fuller than it would have been at like the peak of your monk life training.
Yeah, it definitely is. And that's not to say like the monk life training wasn't enjoyable. I mean, I love that time in my life. But I will say then my happiness hung on performance.
Right.
And my happiness doesn't hang on performance anymore. There's still things that I want that I train really hard for that I'm disappointed when they don't go my way. But then there's all this other stuff. So, yeah, it's just a different lifestyle.
Yeah. And on a purely practical note, so pro runner for 17 years, how are you staying like injury free? And have you started adding in any strength or yoga or anything like that? Or are you just straight running still?
So I get injured a lot and I've been injured, I was injured most of 2013 and most of 2014.
Right.
I was injured most of 2016, a little bit into 2017. So last year I set the goal, I started to feel really good in December of last year of 2017. I set the goal of 8 months without an injury and no racing, not even thinking about racing, not even thinking about trying to get on a track. And I did it, and so now I have a little bit of a base to like move forward and actually try to do more. But I think as I've gotten older, recovery has become a lot more important.
Yeah.
Taking the time to stretch before and after has become a lot more important. Maybe not running those junk miles that I used to really like because I used to like to see the 120, 125 in my logbook, but maybe now they just make me feel more tired than they have benefit. And yeah, it's just the recovery days have to be slower. So it's been an evolution. I can't just hammer the way I used to at all. I do also work out twice a week with a strength conditioning coach because I am older and my stride is tightened up and things in my body after years and years and years of doing it have like fallen into patterns, which aren't necessarily great, So I think addressing all that stuff, doing things I'm uncomfortable with, like jumping and plyos and that kind of stuff has really helped me this last year, I think, maintain my health.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just picturing like in your office, you have like it's been this many days since my last running injury and just watching you like start adding days to it.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I set this goal. I was like, I want to run 70 to 80 miles a week for, till June and not have to take a day off because I'm hurt. If I take a day off because I'm up on miles and whatever, or my family's doing something special, that's one thing. And with each month I was like so excited. I was like, I can't remember the last time I went this long without an injury. So now it's time to like, if I'm really going to race this fall, and I just started the last 2 weeks, start to build back up and start to introduce some harder stuff. But, if you constantly are injured, then at first you have the base you had the year before. or maybe 6 months before. But then when you're chronically injured for a year and a half, there's nothing to fall back on anymore. And so I really felt like this past year I had to build myself back again.
Yeah. So with injury, what about the mental aspect? How do you not just get into a complete funk and just be like, nope, it's all over, just done with racing? How do you deal with it?
Yeah, I mean, of course I have those thoughts, just like anyone else. When I get a stress fracture or I have to tear my cartilage or something, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is crazy. I'm so unlucky. I hate this. I hate watching everyone, running around. My neighbors running in like their flip-flops, running down the block, and I can't even run a quarter mile, So I definitely have those thoughts where I'm frustrated and angry. But I've learned over the years to try to, like you were saying earlier, reframe it and see it as a gift of time that I didn't have before. And I usually go visit my family now when I get injured because you can cross-train from anywhere. So I try to visit family and friends, and I really try to say, okay, this is some time that I didn't know I was going to have. And instead of like wallowing every day, I'm going to try to take this as a gift of time that I didn't know I was going to have. And I'm going to nurture all these other things in my life that I care about while still cross training. But like I said, you can do that from anywhere. So I really try to like nurture all these other aspects of my life.
Yeah, for sure. And okay, in terms of other aspects, I mean, you had a baby in 2010 and came back to racing a year later. What was that process like?
I wouldn't recommend that. It's more of a contractual issue, and I think that I have some pretty permanent hip issues because of that.
Sure.
But my son was there for so much. Like I ran 69 minutes and a half when he was five and a half months old, and I finished fifth at Boston when he was 6.5 months old. And while if I could go back in time, I wouldn't have done that. It still was like an incredible journey. And I would never recommend it, and this is why. I think you can run right away. I don't think that was the problem. I think it was the intensity too fast, too soon, and trying to continue to nurse and the sleepless nights. And I think I don't remember a lot of that time because I was just so exhausted and stressed out. And so I wouldn't recommend putting the Boston Marathon on your race calendar 6 months after your child's going to be born. But if you find yourself in that situation like I did, I still liked it, and I'm like proud that I did that. But I would definitely say don't do what I did. Like give yourself a little bit more time because you did grow a child, a human being in your body that took all of your nutrients, like a parasite, took everything. And then you birthed it, which is traumatic enough, and then you nurtured it and cared for it. And like that is your top priority. And so your body is definitely in a weakened state. So I don't think that running hurts you. I don't think lifting weights hurts you. I just think you really have to, there were a lot of alarm bells along the way that I was doing too much, and I just ignored them. And I wish I had listened to those bells a little bit more.
That's fair. Any advice for new moms who are who know they want to be out running but are just kind of struggling to fit it in and just kind of like in this weird position of like, oh, I want to be outside, but I don't know if I should be spending that time away from the baby, any of that kind of stuff. What's your advice?
Mom guilt is a real thing, and it's really hard to give yourself permission to go do something for yourself. So I get it. But when I was coming back, if my neighbor offered to watch Colt, I would just take them up on it. People don't offer if they don't mean it. And so I would kind of pass them off. I never really ran with a baby jogger. I tried and I wanted to like throw it. And so I was like, this isn't like safe for myself or my child. But my husband would run with the baby jogger and run alongside me. And that's actually how I started getting back into training, is I felt so guilty leaving. So my husband would run and push Colt. And so he would be there, but I would be running. And so that's kind of how I got back into it. But I think taking advantage of friends that offer to help, if you have a group of friends that's going really early in the morning, maybe when your spouse or your partner is around, do it. Because you know what? it's really hard. And the first time is the hardest time, that ripping off the Band-Aid and leaving your child. But it's 30 minutes to an hour. You're going to come back with a clear head that you need. You need that time because your entire life is dedicated to keeping this human alive and caring for this human.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can take this little bit of time for yourself, you come back, even though it's running, which is a physical activity, you actually come back refreshed and you feel better. And it doesn't seem so overwhelming. I would be so overwhelmed and so tired, and I would go train and come home, and it would not feel so overwhelming. I would be like, I can do this. We're going to get through this. We can do this. So take advantage of your friends. Take advantage of people who help. Take advantage of a gym that has daycare in there, and just take the time for yourself. Carve it out, even if it's just 20 minutes at first. But give yourself permission to take care of yourself.
I love that. I have so many, I'm now at the age where all of my friends are having babies, and kind of seeing the ones who are taking that time and how much happier and calmer they are as a result has been super interesting.
Yep.
Okay, totally switching gears. You have a new collection out with, and I'm sorry, I do not know how to pronounce Oiselle.
It's Oiselle, and that's okay. I never knew how to pronounce it either, but it's Oiselle.
Okay, I'm like obsessed with the clothing that they make, but the pronunciation is just...
I know, it tricks a lot of people, and you're not alone. It tricks me too.
Okay, so talk about this new collection that they have with you.
So one of the things I didn't go to design school. I actually studied psychology in college, but I've always been, changed my clothes multiple times a day because I work out multiple times a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been obsessed with the way things fit and with the way things feel. I'm obsessed with fabrics. And so when I first joined Oiselle, Sally, the CEO, and I would talk a lot about my obsession with fabrics. There's certain clothes I want to wear when I'm running fast. There's certain clothes I want to wear when I'm running slower. There's certain clothes I want to wear when I'm warming up. There's certain clothes I want to wear between workouts. And so we would talk about this a lot. And finally, she, last year, in early 2017, said, do you want to do your own collection? And I was like, yes, I do. And so, I did the first one last year. Obviously, I'm not a designer, so I just talked and felt fabrics and talked about what I wanted, and then back and forth with the design team at Oiselle. And then this year, we kind of updated the collection to make it fit a little bit better, to make the fleece and some of the pieces a little bit softer. But, my collection is mostly like relaxing and recovery time wear because that's what I live in,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest, when I'm not running. If I put on a pair of jeans, my husband's like, whoa, dressed up.
Yep.
So it's about comfort, but still, like, you're presentable, you're not in your, like, huge sweats, and you're still presentable. Like, I can go meet my son's teacher, and I can go to the store, and I can do all these things. But my body feels unrestricted and comfy and like it's being taken care of. So that's kind of how the Kara collection was born. And this year it's just a little better, honestly. The cuts are just a little better and the fabric's a little better.
Yeah, I keep eyeing the pants. I think I'm going to have to pull the trigger and try them out because I've been looking for a pair of track pants that actually would fit a runner's build for quite a while. So I need to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. If you had to pick one thing out of the new book that you want people to know and you want people to try to do, what would it be?
My ultimate hope would be that you read it cover to cover and you do the activities involved.
Everyone should. Everyone definitely should.
Because not every technique is going to work for every individual, and that's why we put all the different techniques in there. But if there's one thing, I would want people to dedicate themselves for 1 month to keeping a confidence journal. So for 31 nights in a row, writing something positive about themselves before they go to bed.
I love that. I have it in my to-do list to start doing it tomorrow. So I was like, I just couldn't, I wanted to start it as soon as I started reading the book, and I was like, I can't do one other thing with this camp going on right now. I'm sleeping in a tent. Yeah. It's a rough time. But
that's all right. I give you a pass.
All right, perfect. It's on the to-do list. I'm going to be really regretting that I didn't start it earlier when it's Saturday at 6 a.m, but I'm just going to remember.
Hey, that's okay. You'll get into the routine, and then you'll have that in your back pocket next time.
Yeah, exactly. So where can people get the book and find out more about you and all of your retreats and all that fun stuff?
So any information about the retreat is on my website at karagoucher.com. The book is available for order on Amazon, but at this point it should be in most bookstores around the country. So it's called Strong, and you can just Google it and find out where it is locally, or you could order it off Amazon.
Perfect.
And
Yeah, and we'll have all of those links in the show notes. And then, so what is your race season looking like for this fall, so people can kind of follow along with where you're racing?
Yeah, so I'm hoping to do a marathon in the fall, and I'm hoping to do a half marathon in that build-up. But I am not in very good shape right now, and so I'm nervous to kind of tell people because I'm not 100% confident it's going to happen. I mean, I really want it to happen, and that's the goal that my coaches, my husband, and I have set for myself. But so I would just say stay tuned. It'll be later in the fall rather than earlier.
Perfect. And people can follow you on Instagram, and it's just at Kara Goucher, correct?
Yes, correct.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for chatting and for writing. Like I said, such a good book that I think is actually going to help a ton of, well, women, but also men who are having a self-confidence struggle. I think it's an awesome read, and it's been really fun kind of going through the exercises in it. So thank you.
No, thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time to read it.
Hey guys, in case you haven't noticed, Cross is coming. That's right, the UCI season is about to start. There's all of these races popping up starting in early September, which is still crazy to me that we're here, which means you guys probably are trying to get your remounting and dismounting technique dialed in before that first race of the season.
Yeah, I mean, my belief is that all cyclists should learn to get on and off their bike. So I've partnered with Ryan Leach, and he has a membership site for skills. So you can learn to wheelie, you can learn to bunny hop, and so we're adding the cyclocross mount and dismount to these series of courses. And this is going to be released just here at the end of August 2018. And so if you want to sign up to get early bird discounts and find out when it gets released,
also important,
you can go over to smartathlete.ca/CX course, or just probably Google it too, but that should get you there.
And you get to watch me doing remounts and dismounts really wrong and then kind of correctly.
Yeah.
All right, check it out and enjoy the rest of this episode. Hey guys, before you take off, we just wanted to jump on here and talk a little bit about the Wide Angle Podium donor drive that's going on this August. So Wide Angle Podium is a member-supported network. They have tons of awesome shows, you know, in addition to us, obviously. We have the Slow Ride podcast, there's Crosshairs, so many other really cool cycling-specific podcasts. I think we might be the only non-cycling-specific one on the network, so it's pretty rad that they let us, you know, hang out with them.
Yeah, it's definitely a conglomerate.
That makes it sound like they're in some kind of like skyscraper building, and
no, in fact it's quite different. It's all just regular people who are talking and trying to get, you know, people like Katie Compton, or we just had Chris McDougall today that you just listened to, and it's you know, bringing this content that hopefully is, you know, very near and dear to your heart, you know, whether you're a cyclist or something like that. It's very specific, right? And that's this day and age, you know, we're not paying NBC for our cable package. I mean, you've cut the cord. You're not paying for cable anymore. Who does that? So it's really now, you know, you pay maybe Apple for your $10 Apple Music, and then you
Netflix?
Maybe you're Netflixing and chilling. I don't know what you choose to do with your own time, but that would be an option. And then, you know, maybe some YouTube in there. And then you got your Wide Angle Podium, right? So you're getting your podcast, and it's a very specific show, right? There's no more channel surfing. You know that these, you know, five different shows maybe you listen to as a cyclist, or, you know, maybe you listen to us for sort of this all-around stuff, and then maybe you have like another show that you listen to that's about something else, like dogs or something. But slowly our show is merging into a dog show.
I was going to say. Anyway, though, if you end up supporting Wide Angle Podium, which you can do if you go to wideanglepodium.com/donate, you not only get to help out shows like ours, you also get some sick bonus content. We actually put a lot of time this summer into recording a couple of bonus episodes with some pretty high-level people about some pretty cool topics. We put together a couple handouts and PDFs as well, so you get bonus content from us as well as from all of the other podcasts. So really
it should be a lot, right? Like
yeah.
we put in 3 or something. Is that what it was?
This year we have 3 episodes.
But there's I imagine all the older stuff is in there too, and there was some really good stuff from last year and the year before too.
Yep, and yeah, like I said, a couple new handouts with some of the stuff that we talk about on the show, kind of put into here's like an easy way to put this stuff into practice. So yeah, it's really great if you can help support us and the network. We will be forever grateful. You will be our best friends. Cross is coming, so you're probably going to see us at some races. So how great would it be to get to come up and be like, hey, I support your show. I would give you some stickers then. Probably some Shred Girls swag if you
I was wondering what you were going to offer on top. I'm like, hey, be careful. What if this goes really well?
I'll buy you lunch if you're like one of the highest donors.
Beers for everyone. Molly Herford.
You know what? If you support the show with over $20 a month, I will buy you a beer at the next cross race.
I mean, I think if there's
no problem.
I think at any
level,
they still have to find you, right? So what are the chances that this is going to backfire?
I feel like at Gloucester, I'm going to lose a lot of money.
Yeah, but how much does a beer actually cost? I mean,
at Gloucester,
if someone gives to you and you give back, and then you have a beer, I feel like that was like meant to happen. I will spend on that beer. That's it. I'm offering the beer now.
There we go. If you donate, screenshot the email that says you're donating. Find one of us at a cross race, and we will buy you a beer.
You don't think we can do this unless we'll just trust them?
No, I want a screenshot.
Oh, and they're gonna have to bring a piece of paper too?
No, just their phone.
Oh,
Screenshot of
yeah.
the email.
I guess you can do that now. You've cut the cord. You got it in the cloud.
Come on, I'm just saying. All right, do that. We'll buy you a beer. You'll make our day. Anyway, so wideanglepodium.com.
Bonus content. We got bonus content.
All right.
I'm really wondering. I want to know what the bonus content is for like the crosshairs, and they probably have some really good stuff. Because this last episode they just did, we talked about that last show. I thought that was like one of the best things I've ever listened to.
Well, now you're just giving it away for free.
No. This is just the show they did. But they had Peter.
They didn't.
I made up Peter Sagan. That was just hype. But I mean, obviously they have Peter Sagan as the bonus content. I mean,
maybe. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not promising that. That's not my show. But who did they have on that was amazing and I was excited about?
Matthew Vanderpool.
I mean, that's just like Peter Sagan.
Okay.
Although they also developed hype, I think, around the fact that Peter Sagan doesn't know who Vanderpool is or something.
You're getting really into the weeds here, dear.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Filibuster?
wideanglepodium.com/donate. Do it and we'll buy you a beer. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Thanks so much for tuning into the Consummate Athlete podcast. You can check out my stuff over at theoutdooredit.com or by following me on Instagram and Twitter at Molly J. Herford. And you can check out Peter's coaching, training plans, blogs, all that fun stuff over at smartathlete.ca or by following him on Twitter and Instagram at Peter Glassford. And if you want to support this show and other awesome podcasts, please check out wideanglepodium.com for show info, other podcasts, bonus content, and to become a donating member so you can get all of that rad behind the scenes content and help keep shows like this on the air. And lastly, if you're enjoying this podcast and all the information that we're bringing to you every single week, do us a solid and pop into iTunes to leave us a rating and review. It takes you about 2 seconds. You can do it on your computer, you can do it on your phone, and it really helps us out. Thanks so much, and we will see you next week.